The problem with talking about the big change in business today is yesterday people were talking about a different big change in business today. And so whenever you read the papers, you listen to a strategy guru, you listen to a talking head like me, they're telling you about some new big change that's going to revolutionize business. So you would be forgiven for being a little skeptical of anyone saying that this is the next big thing. So the good news is there is no next big thing. There is a thing that has always been operating in business. But in some ways, learning from some interesting places, we've just begun to be able to express it better and do it so much better. What that thing is the ability to operate at high velocity. So velocity is, to use the term from Jim Collins, velocity is the hedgehog concept. So what that means is, if an organization is focused on velocity, it means that they have three immediate benefits. First of all, their ability to be able to anticipate the future, to be able to consider all the possible risks that are going to be emerging in the future because they have a slow, inadequate response system to respond to regulatory change, customer needs, etc. This is no longer an organizational issue of the same importance that it was. Because if you have a high velocity capability of response, then if you make a mistake, perhaps the application that you deployed wasn't quite as right on in terms of the UX as you would have liked it to have been, that's okay because you can put it straight tomorrow. If your understanding of regulation was perhaps not 100% agreed with the regulator or perhaps some auditors, well, you can change that tomorrow. And so the ability to respond at high velocity is fundamentally changing how businesses think about risk. And so velocity gives you the ability to be able to understand that you can't anticipate the future. And because you can't anticipate the future, what you want to create is a platform that allows you to respond to the future as it happens today. Now, if we think about all of the discussions that business gurus and strategists will talk to us about long-term planning, the best practice seems to say that a clearly plotted path from here to the future never works. So the research shows that we always tack a little. We always move this way, we move that way. We respond to the weak signals that we get in the environment. And yet, businesses have typically implemented slow, cumbersome processes, which mean that when we tack, when we have to change, our ability to be able to support that change with process change internally or systems change internally is limited by the fact that we've decided that we need to slow those systems down because going slow is safer. But it turns out that going slow is not safer. It turns out that what our mothers told us about riding too fast on the bike was a great lesson for a 7-year-old, but not such a good lesson for a corporation. So the velocity idea is fundamentally transforming how organizations are beginning to think about their competitors. Because by being able to operate at high velocity, by essentially withholding the idea that you can be as slow as the rest of the peers that you have in your industry, and by those peers beginning themselves to increase their ability to be high velocity organizations, you begin to be able to compete with those disruptive companies whom you never thought you would be able to compete with. So in the financial services organizations, because they are so highly regulated, because there is so much compliance and legacy debt in these organizations, they are easily open to disruption. So disruption in the payment space, the online banking space, etc. And we've all seen and we all know about these competitors. Now, a slow organization, a traditional slow-moving organization is unable to compete at the rate of innovation and development that these smaller organizations are able to operate at. And yet, when we start implementing high-velocity operating platforms, using automation, using software like Chef, we're able to transform these large organizations with perhaps 100 years of experience in serving a market to be able to focus that in a highly responsive and effective platform for changing their customers' experience and improving their business.